Let's get the gang members out. Everybody agrees. But let's not innocent gay hairdressers get lumped up with the gangs, and then like how long before that guy can get out? Can we figure out how to get him out? Does everyone?
What's going on, you guys? Today we have Joe Rogan getting roasted by TYT. Joe Rogan is way too late to the party with all these deportation issues. TYT's calling him out. I'm giving my commentary as well. Let's watch.
Scared that people who are not criminals are getting like lassoed up and deported and sent to like El Salvador prisons.
With a bunch of these Trinidad guys, allegedly they got one guy who, at least one guy who wasn't a criminal, who was just a gay barber who I think, according to the story, came here legally. He was here legally. That's what they said.
Joe Rogan and Konstantin Kisin weighed in on the wrongful deportation of a Venezuelan migrant who was sent to a maximum security prison in El Salvador, with ICE claiming that he was a member of Tren Aragua. However, it appears that is not the case. In fact, he wasn't even in the United States illegally. He was here legally. He had a legitimate asylum claim. He came in through a port of entry and made that asylum claim. And his name's Andrei Hernandez. He's a gay makeup artist who's been an outspoken critic of Venezuela. And I just feel like it's pretty obvious he's not a Tren Aragua gang member.
Yeah, they don't even allow gay people into the gang. So among 1,000 reasons why he's not a gang member. So this is what happens when you don't do due process.
Exactly.
Because the courts are supposed to check. Oh, is he a gang member or isn't he? Oh, is he undocumented or isn't he? Did he come here legally or not? Because if you don't check, you get people who did come here legally and that aren't in a gang. And that's why, like, if he did this without doing it in a dumb way, and he just rounded up the actual gang and made sure, then shipped them off, some people would still be mad that he's sending him to a hellhole in El Salvador. But overall, the American people would be massively on his side.
Yeah, and look, I want to be 100% clear. Everyone, including individuals who are suspected of being gang members, and there's actual evidence, showing that they're part. Doesn't matter. You need to go through the proper channels. There needs to be due process. There's a reason why due process exists. And if you think it's okay to just throw it away when it comes to individuals who the federal government is simply accusing unilaterally of doing something criminal, well, I mean, you're really allowing so much power to be concentrated in the federal government to the point where they can accuse anyone of anything.
We know why he got deported. It wasn't because of his tattoos. The system is showing its teeth. It's showing its teeth right now to maybe someone who's a little bit more marginalized than your Bobby from Pennsylvania, right? And right now, everyone who's not getting affected, they might not be as concerned about what's going on at this given moment. I give it about 5 to possibly 10 years. And then as soon as your Bobbies, as soon as your Shellys, as soon as these people are starting to face the repercussions of a system that only benefits off of the backs of the less fortunate, then I think that we may have an issue that the masses actually care about.
And you don't get your day in court. That's crazy. That is absolutely insane. And I'm really happy that people are waking up to how insane that really is. Now, in this case, we're talking about a Venezuelan migrant who made a, legitimate asylum claim through the proper channels. He was in the country legally. He's sent to El Salvador, meaning a third country, to a detention facility for hardened criminals and terrorists. That's CCOT. That's insane. Now, he had sought asylum in the United States through a port of entry, but the Trump administration argues that he's part of Tren Aragua because he has gang tattoos. Oh, interesting. So, they make the claim. I want to see the gang tattoos. Maybe they have a legitimate argument here. Here's what the tattoos look like. Here are the tattoos that ICE declared were evidence that this guy, gay makeup artist who came to a port of entry seeking asylum from Venezuela, was a member of a vicious gang. I'm not making this up. This is it. Mom and dad with crowns over them. Those are not gang tattoos. But apparently it didn't matter because despite the fact that it's obvious those aren't gang tattoos, his lawyers have not been able to reach him since March 15th. And after interviewing him, he says he he is not a member of the gang. Somehow an ICE officer concludes that despite all that, his 2 crown tattoos and mom and dad written under them are consistent with those of a Tren de Aragua member.
No, they're not.
No, they're not. They're just lying. So with that context in mind, and knowing that this is what Rogan and Kisin are talking about, let's hear more of what they had to say.
I think a human being plucked out of nowhere and ending up in a country he's never been in a maximum security prison with gang members, seems like a bad thing to happen to me.
It's horrific. It's horrific.
I don't think that should be controversial.
No, that's not controversial at all. And this is the thing, measured twice, cut once. This is this is kind of crazy that could be possible. That's horrific. And that's bad for the cause. Like, the cause is, let's get the gang members out. Everybody agrees. But let's not innocent gay hairdressers get lumped up with the gangs. And then, how long before that guy can get out? Can we figure out how to get him out?
His deportation policies. I mean, he literally is putting out movie trailers on Twitter about, people getting put in handcuffs, getting put into the plane to get sent to, I believe it was Gitmo at the time, or Venezuela. He was trying to send them to Venezuela, but he's been extremely open about the severity of his policies. And you're going to have Joe Rogan, who was out here saying, oh, let's give him a chance. Let's go for this guy. And then now it's a little bit after, not even less than 6 months after. And he can sit from the comfort of his studio and say, hey, let's get this guy out. But unfortunately, the damage is already done.
Is there any plan in place to alert the authorities that they've made a horrible mistake and correct it?
Well, if you think about it from a government perspective, and this is where I think it gets quite sinister, is once you've done that, the incentive structure is never going to be to admit that and deal with it. The incentive structure is to say nothing, to cover it up, to pretend it didn't happen.
But
right?
That is horrible.
So someone ends up in a black hole. But we've seen it. We've seen it in every country, including in America.
But that's the thing about politics, right? Never admit your fault. Never admit you're wrong.
It's so dumb.
And this is the thing we're seeing with the signal thing, and this is the thing we're seeing with this.
And there seems to be more frustration with the lack of accountability or the willingness to take responsibility for mistakes made. So far, we haven't heard anything from the Trump administration in regard to this specific individual who was sent away. But you should know that we have so far spent about $40 million to send migrants to El Salvador's CICOT. And that's according to the State Department. They apparently did an analysis and provided that analysis to senators. There was a delegation of 5 senators who even visited, I'm sorry, that's for Gitmo. So we've spent $40 million to jail 400 migrants at Guantanamo Bay. So it's not just El Salvador, we're also sending them to Guantanamo Bay, but that has become so expensive that the Trump administration quietly stopped doing that. And they actually sent about half of those 400 migrants back to the United States because of how costly it was. But I should also note that we've been paying El Salvador as well. The last time it was reported, we spent about $6 million to send migrants there. And now a federal judge has stepped in to do an emergency order to temporarily block what the Trump administration is doing. So this federal judge has issued the ruling saying that, listen, you can't do this without due process. Okay, so we're gonna do a temporary block. This is federal judge, US District Judge Brian Murphy. He's based in Boston, and he stated that the Trump administration must give those they want to deport a meaningful opportunity to seek humanitarian protection in the US. And Murphy wrote that officials may not deport someone to a so-called third country unless and until they provide the deportee and their lawyer written notice of the country to which they are being sent. Then the judge said officials must let them apply in immigration court for protection to stay in the US under the Convention Against Torture, which Congress ratified back in 1994.
And while I don't know what's going to happen with Andrea Jose Hernandez Romero, while I don't know what's going to happen with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, I don't know what's going to happen with any of these situations. I do pray for justice, and I do believe that the only thing that we can do as an American people is come together and continue to let them not be forgotten. I mean, as far as what I do know, they have about 30% of the population. Like Joe Rogan right here, he might represent the people that are truly just like getting swayed from side to side. You know, and he may start to see that what he did was a negative thing. You know, he's clearly calling it out right here that he's like, oh, well, damn, like this is crazy. But let's not forget something a little bit more concerning is that you have 30%, this is a rough guess, but 30% of Americans that are die-hard Trumpers. Whenever I say die-hard Trumpers, that man can do no wrong. That he's out here, and you might even be able to get Trump in a room by himself, and he may be able to say, yeah, we messed up with that one. That wasn't a good issue. But as you know, as they said earlier in that show, they can't admit whenever they're wrong. So you won't ever see Trump actually go on the air and admit that he's wrong. Zoom out a little bit, and now you have a lot of people that can't even admit whenever Donald Trump is wrong. That the implications of that, they're going to actually argue that some people in the United States don't deserve due process. That's where they're wanting to take it. And Trump's going to continue to eat it up. He's going to say, yes, you guys are right. I haven't done anything wrong whatsoever. I've never done anything wrong. And he's going to continue to spew that on the TV because he enjoys that recognition. So now you have a group of America that fully believes that this guy can do no wrong, that anything he does is planned, coordinated, calculated, and you have someone who does clearly make mistakes because we all make mistakes, but he doesn't want to be told that he's ever making mistakes and doesn't ever want to come clean about it, and he rides that line way better than most politicians, in my opinion, because he just misdirects a lot of the time, boiling down to siding with one man versus the freedom of an entire nation. I mean, I think the only thing we can do in the next few years is just to continue to call out bullshit. But I'm very curious to see how far these MAGA cultists go. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see y'all soon.